Okay, let's call the select board meeting to order for Monday, July 27th at 7:04 p.m. Okay, first order of business. Most everybody's been here, so Zoom, if you're here, mute yourself, and if you need to talk, either raise your hand or we'll unmute you. Public forum. Is there anybody here who'd like to say something on the public forum that's less than 5 minutes and is not currently on the agenda?
Are there any additions, removals, or?
Oh, you are right. Thank you, Tasha. Sorry. Before I get to public forum, Val, is there any additions, deletions? No, Tasha.
Nope.
Okay, public forum.
Pete Lossman here.
Okay, go ahead, Pete.
So I guess I'd just like to express my concerns about the road here on Carlson Road. The widening of it, it seems to grow every year. I've lived here since the early 70s, and this really is a fairly recent problem, probably in the last 8 to 10 years, but in the last 4 or 5 years, it's just really taken off. We have 20-foot culverts placed in the road at a 30-degree angle, which gives you an 18-foot top width max, and we have road widths of 24 feet. Eric was down the other day to let me know his plans on replacing the culverts, which is to extend them another 10 feet. And that really doesn't set well with me. Every study about road width and speed of vehicles indicates the wider the road, the faster the vehicles travel. And we have cars going through here, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 50 miles an hour all the time. So that's the second part of my concern. The real concern is the widening of the road and the negative impact it has on my ability to do things here on my property because of the narrowness of my lot. So I would really like to suggest that rather than widening the road another 10 feet or extending the culverts 10 feet, perhaps we pull the toe of the road back to where it used to be and install those 20-foot culverts and maintain that 16-foot top width that was there for, 30, 40 years that I've lived here. So I guess that's really what I want to say.
You. Okay, next. Anybody else have anything else they want to say in public forum?
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Next order
will
of
I be hearing
business.
back from anybody? Will I hear anything back from anybody?
I guess I'd like to know, this is Joel, Michelle. I'd like to know, Eric, what did you and Peter have a conversation about? And, I kind of somewhat agree with Peter. We don't need to make that road any wider, that's for sure. But I do agree we need to get the water off the road, and that's why the culverts have got to be maybe a little longer if they're going at an angle. But I do remember years that I used to drive bus down there in the 80s or 90s, and it wasn't that wide as it is now. It seems to always go, because there's a bank on the east side, it seems to always go to the west side of the road. And I just would like to know, Eric, your conversation with Peter, what you guys discussed.
Yeah,
or maybe we just have this on the agenda sometime. I'd like to hear what Eric has to say.
What do you want, Joel? You want me to tell you what we talked about, or do you want to put it on next week?
Well, I don't know. It's probably going to go more than 5 minutes then, that's all.
So
kind of what you and Peter talked about, that's all.
Basically what he said, he doesn't want the road any wider. I wasn't going to go any wider than what it is now. I was going to cut the culvert off right at the edge and not extend it out to the toe of the bank. But I was probably going to extend it another 5-6 feet with the culvert that's in there now. I don't believe you want to shorten that road up or narrow the road up at all. You narrow the road up, yeah, it'll probably decrease the speed of traffic, but it's not going to do the safety at all.
When we were out there on the road trip, I recall a comment about the width accommodating two-way traffic.
Yeah, you go back to narrowing it up, and you're not going to accommodate two-way traffic. You're going to have one person is going to have to stop, pull over to let the other person by.
Could we,
And we won't be able to go down through there with a plow in the wing without having to pick up and move and everything else for every car that we meet going down through there.
could we at least ask Bruce maybe to put the speed cart down there and verify? Yeah,
Well,
number one.
yeah.
Going like,
No, exactly. I told Peter that it would be an enforcement thing, and I would definitely say that Bruce should go down there and spend some time down there, because I believe, Peter, cars do whip down through there.
maybe the first thing we'd ask for is the speed cart, and can we kind of pick the times that, you know, the speed is going down through there, and then maybe Bruce can alter his schedule, maybe send a man down there to.
Definitely would be helpful, yeah.
Can we bring the speed cart down there? That's not, like, that's out of the police district, correct?
Well, we've had it on the road before, Michelle, remember when we had
Okay.
it on
Well,
almost.
I'm just saying for Bruce to do that, that's got to be part of his contract with the town, the extra stuff,
Yeah.
so, okay. All right. Well, we can start there.
Do you
So
folks
is it,
want this to be continued as an agenda item on a later meeting?
It might have to be. We'll see what comes out of what Bruce says. I mean, pulling it back to 16 feet isn't, I don't know that that's a good safety if you can't fit two cars back, side by side to go through there, but we can certainly go and have this discussion at another meeting.
I mean, I think, yeah,
When we have more time.
So could
Go
I
ahead,
jump in here?
Go ahead, Joel, Joel go first and then I'll let you, Pete.
just before we decide to have another meeting, I'd like to grab, take a month or two and get some data. And then maybe
Mhm.
September, late September, we have a meeting and what the data showed us.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
Pete, go ahead.
So as far as two-way traffic, other than Eric's issue with the plow truck, which I can understand, this road has been 16 feet or narrower for years and years, and there's always been two-way traffic. There's never been a abundance of accidents on this road. So I don't agree that a 16-foot travel way is too narrow. As a rule, vehicles are narrower today than they were 30 years ago.
Yep.
It's
And what's
simply a
our right
matter of,
that road? Do we know? What's the town's right of way?
it's a
Joel, do
three-rod
you
road.
remember?
Yeah, throughout the road. 25 feet from center.
25 feet to the center?
Yeah. But you'd
And-
have to do the center line back where it used to be, Michelle, not where
Okay.
it is now.
Yep. Nope, I get that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Go ahead, Ian.
yeah, I think similar to what Jill said, I think if we can collect some data, at least on the speed travel of the road, at least we'd have some good material there. And then maybe in September, sort of revisit this. It would be nice in terms of my own knowledge just to get sort of a more history of the road. Peter's given us some this evening, but it'd be nice to get a little bit more history and see why it has expanded over these years and the reasons for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So Pete, look at it at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Right, bye.
Okay, next order. Fire Chief Brett LaRose and Eric Foran, update and apparatus replacement status.
Good evening, Michelle. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
All right. Well, good evening, Michelle and the Select Board, and to Valerie. Thanks for the opportunity for Eric and I to speak before you this evening. we wanted this opportunity to provide the select board and the town an update on the work that is currently being done on the design of the town of Bristol's newest piece of fire apparatus. Before I hand it over to Eric, Deputy Chief Eric Foran, he is the lead for this fire apparatus design working group. I wanted this opportunity just to provide a quick backstory of how we arrived at this point tonight, because I think this is significant as we are speaking before you tonight. We're certainly not at a point where we're asking for authorization to utilize funds that are set aside for this purchase, but the fact that we have funds set aside for this purchase is significant. Fire apparatus have come a long way over the years as national standards have increased. Firefighter safety is at the forefront. The days of using military surplus vehicles and old milk trucks and fastest bakery bread trucks are gone for obvious reasons, due to the number of fatalities across the nation, due to the lack of safety regulations and maintenance on such vehicles. I've had the honor and privilege of serving as the town's fire chief now in my 7th year. And one of my first goals as fire chief was to come before you folks and to ask you to consider setting aside some capital funds for the replacement of the town's fire department vehicles. The town has not done that. The last 2 pieces of apparatus that the town has 100% purchased have been done so through a bond. That's one of the vehicles we're speaking about tonight. We are looking to replace a 1997 Spartan pumper, and then there was the 2007 Spartan pumper tanker truck. Those 2 vehicles were both bonded. The town does own those vehicles outright now, which is a good thing. But relying upon fundraising dollars and the hoping of a bond vote passing to replace frontline emergency vehicles it's challenging. I'm sure I know I don't have to tell the members of the select board, but perhaps for those listening, fundraising is extremely challenging today, and the cost versus benefit ratio is significant. Fire vehicles cost a tremendous amount of money today. There's not parking lots of these things sitting around. These are custom built vehicles. We here in Bristol, like most small municipalities, we're asked to try to keep our apparatus on the road for many years, and we have a history of doing that here in Bristol, anywhere from 20 to 30 plus years, keeping these fire vehicles on the road. But ultimately that also comes with a cost. Again, the vehicle in which we're speaking about this evening, the 1997 Spartan pumper, has cost the town approximately $50,000 in service over the last couple of years. It's inevitable that a vehicle of this age is going to begin to have some catastrophic failures to it, which of course need to be addressed so we can continue to provide fire protection to the town of Bristol. Before we, since in the last 30 years, the town of Bristol has invested approximately $750,000 in their fire apparatus, which is a significant investment, $750,000. But I think it's also worth noting that in those same 30 years, through fundraising and through donations, the fire department, the members of the fire department contributed $325,000 towards the purchase of these apparatus. And that's no small feat. That is a tremendous amount of money, through a coin drop here and there, a fundraising dinner, etc. You guys get my point. It's a lot of work. And when we're talking about the dollar amounts we're talking about this evening, a vehicle that may cost anywhere from $500,000 to, worst case, $600,000. And that's reality. So almost a little over 6 years ago now, I came before you and asked you folks if you would consider fire apparatus capital funding. The town has been providing us capital equipment money for other significant purchases over the years, such as the personal protective equipment we wear, the breathing apparatus we wear on our backs, etc. But these large vehicle purchases, there was no such funding set aside. So the first couple of years, the town tried something. I believe it was the first time we were doing 2 cents on the tax rate, and unfortunately, it was earning money, but it wasn't earning the money that would be needed to replace this vehicle in a responsible amount of time. And so I know after 2 years, the select board revisited it, and you looked at, similar to the highway department, you set aside a lump sum each year. And that lump sum, in addition to the $120,000-ish amount that the 2 years with the 2 cents on the tax cent raised, we are in a position to be able to purchase that vehicle a year from now, this new vehicle, and that money is there. You know, we don't need to come forward and ask for a bond vote, and that's, for me personally, that's really rewarding. That shows a tremendous amount of responsibility on the board, on the town, to have that vision, to look ahead and know that, you know, this is an expense we as taxpayers must burden, and this is a responsible way of doing it. Excuse me. So with that being said, it was time. It's actually been, I wish we could have started this process a few years ago. You know, only if we had a crystal ball and we could see the future and know what maintenance was going to cost, but we don't. But we were finally in a place where the money is there to make such a purchase. And to do that is, there's a tremendous amount of work involved. And that process typically begins with like a needs assessment. You know, we need to understand what type of vehicle we're buying, why are we buying it, what's its primary function. I can tell you the primary function of this vehicle we're talking about tonight is initial fire attack. This is a suppression vehicle that puts water on fires, you know, with firefighters. But it also serves secondary and tertiary functions. This is a vehicle we count on every single time the alarm goes off and we roll out the door. So from the ladders it carries, to the lighting it has on it, to the compartment size, how many firefighters can the cab carry, all these factors are taken into consideration, vehicle size are taken into consideration during this design phase. So after we did a preliminary needs assessment, Deputy Chief Foran, he stepped up, and I can't thank him enough for taking on this initiative, this responsibility, because it's huge, to take the lead on this project. I have to stop and remind myself sometimes that I've taken on a lot of projects over the years, and it's certainly nice not being the lead. I know from Eric's updates, which I know you folks have read his most recent one, he and that working group have done a tremendous job of doing their homework, doing their research, meeting with vendors, you know, collecting all the information, all the data, so we can ensure when the time comes to place this order that we have done, that we, the town, the fire department, have done our due diligence and purchase the right vehicle for the taxpayers of Bristol, a vehicle that, you know, we can hope will last us 20 plus years. So with that being said, I'd like to just pass this over. This is Eric's, his show. And I just wanted to give you all a little backstory. So again, I thank you for allowing us this time this evening. Eric, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Chief. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
All right. So Chief did bring this up and brought it out to the table, and I did offer to spearhead it back in February. So I do have a great group behind me, consisting of Assistant Chief Kevin LaRose, Lance Purley, Honorary Assistant Chief Peter Coffey, Chris Purley, and James Goodyear. Those guys are doing a lot of work, so I certainly do not want to take even a little bit of the credit away from them. They have been putting in a lot of hours and a lot of research to get this done. So we started back in February. First, we met with Chief LaRose, and kind of talked about what the vision for this apparatus would be and what we thought we might need it for going forward. And we came up with the objective to design a replacement for our engine one, our current engine one, fulfills the job tasks of engine one per NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association 1901. So those are standards, codes and standards that we use for the rough outline of the truck. We wanted it roughly the same size, and we were tasked with providing design specifics, specifically the chassis, the pump, and the storage layout, as well as the paint scheme. So that's what we were tasked with back in February. Unfortunately, COVID crept in. This is a pretty intensive process where you're supposed to meet a lot of people and see a lot of things and touch a lot of things, and that kind of all got set aside. We tried the best we could. We had several Zoom meetings to try to formulate our attack plan, and we've come up with our bid sheet based on that. But as the process moved along and the guidance loosened up a bit, we'll say, we started to be able to reach out. We initially were looking at this in two ways. We wanted to have an apparatus that worked well and fulfilled our needs on a actual physical basis, but the relationship with the salesperson as well as the service crew behind that truck is very important. As the chief stated, we keep these trucks well beyond what normally trucks live by. 22 years, I think we're on. So we have a lot of interaction, especially at the end of the life with our service people, either at their location or coming out to our location. So we wanted to make sure that was something that we felt comfortable with, and we felt we'd be serviced in the way that we were supposed to be serviced. So that was the two-pronged approach that we looked at. We then developed a list of 10 vendors and salesmen. That was based on locality. What apparatus had salesmen in the area? There's much more than 10 apparatus out there, much more than 10 manufacturers, but those are manufacturers that are relatively close to us that we'd be able to interact with in an easier capacity. So that was how we developed the first 10. We then worked towards getting that down. Obviously, we can't put a bid out to 10, so we started working through using the criteria of kind of hoops to jump through, I guess you'd call it, for the salesman. How responsive were they when we reached out to them? How responsive were they when we told them that we wanted to buy a new truck? How responsive were they when we told them what we wanted to buy and how we wanted to buy it and what we wanted it to look like? Were they pushy? Did they get back to us quickly? Were they helpful or were they not helpful? It's kind of a job interview almost. So we did lose 2 based on that. We had a couple discussions. One way we worked through how we thought we might be able to handle or be dealt with by salesmen was talking to other local fire departments that had used that manufacturer or that salesperson, or at least the vendor itself, if not the same salesperson. So we got some negative reviews on one, so we ended up dropping them. And then we actually had some personal interaction with one of them. So our engine one had been built by a manufacturer out of New Hampshire that, for the most part, people weren't happy with back in the day, so they were quickly nixed. So we went from 10 to 8. Then we met with another company down in Middlebury. We met their demo, which means their demonstration truck. So we saw that down in Middlebury, but they tended to be mostly wildland trucks. And then secondary to that, they thought more about pumpers, which is what we needed. So we didn't think that was a good fit for us. And then we ended up losing one more just because they never responded to us. So if a entity like us is trying to buy a $500,000 or $600,000 truck, we expect at least some callbacks. We know with the COVID epidemic going on, it's a little bit more difficult, but phone calls aren't that hard. So another one got nixed. So now we are down to 6. Those 6, for anyone that's keeping track, is E1, KME, HME, Coin, Pierce, and Spartan. So those are the 4 different manufacturers. We have now since met and seen a demo with DeSourcy out of St. Albans for the E1. KME, we're still working on seeing their demo, but the truck that we've just built, the Engine 2, our tanker, came out of that shop, a KME shop. HME, we'd actually seen several months ago, but we've met with that salesperson who was actually a Middlebury firefighter. We've met them and seen their truck, but they are coming up again. As well as we made a visit to Swanton, who has several of those trucks. So we spent a couple hours up there, several of us looking through those. trucks to see what they look like actually when they roll off and are used. Towing, we met with the salesperson, obviously a Zoom, and then we actually met with them in person out in Ferrisburg earlier this week, as Ferrisburg has a apparatus built by them. So we did some research on them. Pierce, we did a field trip up to South Burlington, who runs Pierce Trucks, and spent a couple hours up there walking through their truck and talking to them. We also had one of their firefighters come down and meet us and talk to us for a while about how they felt the trucks work. It was actually Todd Poole who was pretty much in charge of running their purchasing of those trucks. So we got a lot of good information out of them. And then we are working with the Spartan Schmiel people. Spartan is the two trucks we have now, the two chassis, and their trucks are used for a lot of chassis. So we have two of those in-house now. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last week. We're still pushing along. We have more contacts to make with other local departments, maybe some more field trips to see them in person. As the guidance comes up, like I said, we're doing more demos and having them come. We are attempting to get from 6 to 4, so then we can really focus on the 4 using the previous criteria. So working through that, having meetings at least bi-weekly with the truck committee now to make sure that we're all on track. We've created what I'm calling our initial bid sheets, or kind of our wants from the truck to begin with. It's not down to the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts stuff that the final bid will be, but talking about where we want, kind of lights we want, what the bumper, how do we want the hoses. So a lot of that is a lot of discussion amongst the group as to how the current setup is, what we on our current E1, what we envision it should be, given 22 years of using that, what we think we could make it better, and we're tying that in with what we see on the street when we make these field trips, and what the research online is giving us, as well as the feedback from the manufacturers. So we're trying to tie that all together to make the most of this truck, because again, we expect to keep it for 20 years. Trucks are a lot different now than they were even 10 years ago when we built engine tankers. So we're kind of starting from scratch and looking at everything and not ruling anything out. So there's a lot of discussions, as you can imagine. For example, you could put the pump on the front, the back, either side, or the top. So something as simple as where the pump panel is could have 6 different outcomes. Talking about current hose lays and how we use them, current hose sizes, current setups of the bumpers versus the back bumpers. So there's a lot of things that we're pushing around and talking about and trying to come up with what we want, and that's what we've gotten on paper, and we're starting to kind of finesse that as we go. But we also try to reach out to the rest of the department and get insight from other drivers, if it's something specific to the physical truck, or interior firefighters if it's specific to the physical firefighting tools and or the hose deployment. So we realize that we're not the 6 people with all the answers, so we're trying to branch out and make sure we're getting as much in there without getting too many chefs in the kitchen, as we say. So we are working through it all. The COVID did slow us down a little bit, but we're kind of getting back on track. So hopefully we'll be able to whittle it down to 4 and then really start pressing on those 4 to get us some more finite numbers as to what they think they might come in at, or what they might be able to give us, or how we might want to design specific things. And then once we get that, we can start to create the bid, and then eventually put the bid out and look at the responses we get and try to compare them in the same light, because obviously they don't all come back the same. So we have to try to convert them to apples. So lots of steps left, but we are well on our way. It has been a couple months, but it's a process, and the truck costs a lot of money, so we want to make sure that we get it right, and we're going to use it for a long time. So we're taking our time and being diligent and trying to make sure that everything is what we want and how we want and where we want. So with that, I did send you guys the bid spec as well as the rundown, so I'll try not to be too lengthy, but if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thanks, Eric. Sounds like you guys have done a lot of work. I know Brett said you're hoping to purchase this next year. So once you guys put out the bid and decide, how long before you decide that you will get it,
We're hearing a year after we pick a company and say go, it'll take them. And some are longer, some are shorter. It could be 8 months to a year, because some companies build what I call you pick which box you want in the truck, and some companies will just start with nothing and build up from that. So depending on what we buy, could depend on the amount of time, but 8 to 12 months is a rough estimate.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Go ahead, Val. Unmute.
I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment to echo what Brett said about the value of capital planning and the investment that's being made, because bonding is expensive. It's a cumbersome process. There are legal costs, and it's time consuming. And then there are the finance charges. There's interest that's paid on the money you borrow, but with capital planning, the money you set aside is earning interest. And in theory, anyway, some of that money that's being set aside would take the place of what would have been a bond payment. So it's a very wise and practical approach to take to these kinds of capital investments.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Doesn't look like anybody else has any more questions. So
Well,
Eric and Brett, thank you.
Reach out if you do have any more. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
I have
Enjoy your
Brett
game.
here. I have one additional question for the select board. The town of Bristol has I apologize, I don't know what the official title is, perhaps a truck committee or a vehicle oversight group, kind of a
Equipment committee.
final, thank you, equipment committee. When would it be appropriate to engage with that group of individuals in this process?
That's a good question.
So who's on the equipment committee?
And if you don't
Who's
have
on the
answer,
equipment committee?
That's okay. If you don't have the answer tonight, that's fine. I just wanted to put it out there because I certainly don't want that to sneak up on us and be like, oh boy, we should have engaged with them a month ago. It's certainly, if things continue to move as they're moving, it is a hope we can come before the select board or this equipment committee, whatever order that happens, to say, here are the top 3, here are their quotes. This is our recommendation. What is your pleasure? That's the plan. Obviously, things are subject to change. As we do live in this COVID world right now, things are always subject to change. And we understand that and are being as patient as we can. But I just want to make sure we're not missing a step here.
Typically, Brett, we get it once you have your specs drawn up and you've gone out to bid and you come with a recommendation, or you can come just after you get your specs before you send them out to bid might be the best. But there again, the committee is not necessarily all up on fire apparatus. So if you come to us once you have your bids with a recommendation, and then we can go through and just ask the questions we have to ask, and then convey your recommendation to the select board is typically the way it goes.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that.
Okay, super. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Have a good night.
You
Thank you.
too.
Going back to his game.
Yes, I think he did. Okay, next order of business, continued discussion about public outreach and community engagement regarding Bristol policing philosophy and implementation.
So this is a continuation from the previous meetings. You had a chance to check out our notes. So we are aiming for the August 3rd Monday meeting at 7 o'clock. We're currently planning or trying to plan for a meeting upstairs at Holly Hall. We're working with Sean about the logistics, the technical logistics of having it be an in-person opportunity and a combo Zoom meeting. Just so this is a chance to check in on some of the details. Senator Bray has agreed to facilitate if that's what the select board would like to see.
Cool. Okay. So hopefully we'll be able to do both in person and Zoom. And if it's in person, are we going to be able to have people register so we know when to cut people off and say, sorry, you have to do a Zoom?
No, that's a question. That suggestion did come up at the last meeting.
But I just hate to have,
There's not much time between now and August 3rd. It's a week, it'll be less than a week by the time we
Right.
get done with tonight. So if we get the word out tomorrow and through the week.
I was just thinking you'd hate to have 100 people show up at the hall and then say, sorry, we're only allowed 75 people in here.
When we did it when the select board met up there back in March, I think it was, and we had the room set up just so. I
Yep.
don't recall what the capacity was at that time,
Mhm.
but it was, everything was.
We were a lot limited. We were limited to a lot less than 75 at that time too.
Oh, right. Yeah, because it's the size of the room and needing to keep all the chairs at least 6 feet apart.
Right. Mhm. Okay.
I think I would opt for the sign up, even though it is a short period of time. If you look, when the group came before us to do the march on the park, they came looking for 25, and the next day they ended up with 350 people. So I think if people want this, they're going to be paying attention and they're going to sign up, and we'll be full in no time at all.
I
I'll
agree.
check with Meredith of what the capacity capacity they calculated the room could hold, so we'll know what the cutoff threshold is.
Right. Mhm. Mhm.
Part of it too is sort of the advertising of this as well, getting it on Facebook and on Front Porch Forum, on multiple occasions, given that we have such a short window. And that should hopefully lead to some quicker signups for people.
Would you have them, Valerie, call the town office to register? How would they register?
I would give a phone number and an email address so folks can go either way. And I'd have it directed at Sharon, at the general contact information.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
So what's the pitch to the public? What brings them to the meeting? What hooked them to come? And is there a particular question on the top, a headline sort of for the meeting, or is there a goal in mind? Or I just wonder if people will come to a meeting that's not well defined. And I'm not saying it's not well defined, but I don't know if that is. I'm just wondering what it is.
I think we had this discussion the last time we talked about this, and didn't we come up with something, Val, that we were gonna, and it was something that Lisa.
Yeah, it was a community conversation about the Bristol Police Department, which is rather broad, I know, but I think it's just sort of, we're trying to encompass as much as we can, outside of policy and things like that.
Right. Go ahead, John.
I just wonder if when you put a Front Porch Forum post up, or however you're going to advertise it, that there's an opportunity to have a few sentences, and you could, for example, if you want a reaction from people, the best way is to ask them a few questions. What do you think? Or, I don't know. I don't want to suggest the questions, but if the pitch is, here's a community meeting about policing, that's a good start. But what's the next thought in that communication to the public? Is it, we want your opinions about X, Y, and Z, or I don't know. I just think it could benefit from a little more definition and maybe help lure people a little more assertively.
Good point. Chris, go ahead.
Good evening. So, I wrote a couple notes to myself to get started, but now it feels a little formal to go back and read those notes of introduction. So I'll just skip all that and say, I had hoped to actually meet all of you in person since we moved in the fall, but between the legislative session and COVID, I feel like I've been quarantined, So anyway, I'm glad to be joining and offering service. My afternoon committee in the Senate is Government Operations, which oversees training and operations for law enforcement in the state of Vermont. So this has been a topic we've been working on in the last, 6 weeks since that tragedy with George Floyd back in late May, which really has triggered conversations all over the country. And so I'm happy to help. We end up in the legislature having controversial topics, and so I guess suppose training as a chair is about how to run a fair, balanced, respectful meeting, even when things can be pretty controversial. And I think it'd be awfully hard for the chief to run such a meeting, and that it's going to be helpful to have someone else, facilitate, so that the chief and others can be just, in a listening mode, take in what people have to say. To what John was saying about structuring the questions, I think that's a really helpful idea, so that people show up with a notion of, well, what are we going to talk about tonight? And I'm guessing that one conversation is not enough. So how do you, it's my guess, my hunch, but how might we set up, sort of a productive framework so people feel satisfied that they came to a meeting, they knew what was on the agenda, they know what they're going to chip in that time, and they might know what to expect as follow-up after that meeting. I know that policing was the first thing that came up, and I talked to the chief on the street a couple of weeks ago, and I was out for an evening bike ride about this. And but I think there is a bigger question for a lot of folks, and that is, what makes a community feel safe and secure? So policing is a piece of it. There's a lot more to it, and I don't, so I'll just offer that big question. Maybe that's another meeting entirely. But one thing, I guess, what I'm sharing in the idea is that it'll be healthy and helpful to the community. I suspect every community, to talk about what do we expect out of our local law enforcement services, But then there's a lot more to what makes people feel safe and secure in a community. And that feels like an important conversation not to miss out on, so that we don't just get stuck talking about policing and forget that schools, fire, rescue, all the volunteer organizations in town also make people feel safe, secure, happy in town. So I'll stop there and just say, if you think I can be helpful, I'm more than happy to pitch in.
Thank you,
I
Chris.
vote we let Chris do it because I don't want to do it. Anybody have any questions for Chris, and what's your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's great, Chris, what you said. I think maybe you connect with Valerie and perhaps sort of put together the format and the framework for that. But I think, your two suggestions, those two areas to look at, I think are excellent suggestions.
And maybe include Bruce in that too. He might have some ideas that he's gotten from people in the public.
Right,
Yep.
right. And I'm guessing Bruce has had plenty of conversation with other folks in law enforcement about meetings that have gone well and maybe not so well, and how to lean into it in the right way to create a productive conversation, which I'm anticipating we will have.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Senator Bray's offer is really good. I hope you guys will take him up on it. I didn't realize the committee service you're on, Senator, but to me it suggests that a good conversation in Bristol could help shape a necessary conversation at the state level. So that's quite a privilege for Bristol, I would say. Another thought is I'm going to send out a couple of a front porch forum post with a couple of links to some really good articles I've read recently. And I would make a particular request of the select board members to read those, because I'm curious for your thoughts of that. But also I would charge the select board with, you are our leaders here in what you think about these issues and the questions you have about these issues. Help inform and encourage a public conversation. So I don't think anybody has a particular end in mind about where this conversation might go, but it just seems like there's a lot of thinking about it, that needs to be done. Anyway, I urge the select board to take an active role in asking the questions that you have, whatever they might be, in this process, because I think that will help the rest of us think about it too. So anyway, thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John.
Go ahead, Chris.
You know, I would want to follow up in on John's last remarks too. Does the select board have some, besides a particular question, you know, for a meeting, had you thought a little bit about, you know, are you thinking about one meeting versus maybe it's a conversation that unfolds over a period of 3, 4, 5 months, something I don't really know, but that, you know, sort of the one and done versus creating a conversation that starts with this meeting, but then you would expect it to continue for as long as people felt like it was a productive conversation to keep on, you know, growing and developing.
No, Chris, I think this was just the initial meeting to kind of get thoughts, suggestion, get the communication going, and then we would decide, you know, where we would go from there, what kind of meetings, do we need to do a committee, you know, that kind of stuff. So this was just the opening conversation.
Okay, great.
And actually, I don't know if you guys saw Mari, she said she'd be happy to help with the mental health part of the Safe Communities conversation. So she could chat with you too, Val and Chris.
Excellent.
Yeah, sorry to be lurking, everyone. I had a kind of a rough day. Speaking of mental health, I talked someone down from suicide this afternoon and filed a report with the police department in another town for attempted vehicular assault. So I'm kind of fried at the moment, but otherwise really grateful for this conversation and happy to be part of it.
That'd be great. Any other questions from anybody? Darla, go ahead.
I'm just curious to know, Bruce, did this conversation, is it forming the way that you want it to as well at the community meeting? Did you have particular questions you wanted to ask the community?
No, from the initial contact that I got from the public, this is a chance for us to listen. So I didn't want to try to influence in one way or the other, what kind of direction. I want to hear from the public. And if they have questions, answer what we can. And if there's information we need to get back to them with, that's what we would do. But initially is listen and then determine what direction we go from there.
We received some written correspondence from community members that really encouraged this type of communication to happen. So I think it would be helpful for us to look back at what those communications, what kind of questions they articulated, what kind of issues they raised, and that might help us frame some structure.
Mm-hmm. Yep, good idea. Go ahead, Chris.
So Val, could I follow up with you and see that correspondence? I mean, that might be helpful too. If I'm gonna go ahead and you decide to have that, it'd be helpful for me to prepare by reading through that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'll forward those to you tomorrow.
Conversation with the chief as well, and you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Send those to you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the fact that somebody sat down and wrote to Valerie is clear evidence that those people are thinking about these issues. And I wonder if you could contact them and ask if it would be okay to release those publicly. And if so, I'd be very curious to hear the ideas of somebody who's willing to sit down and commit them to paper.
They're all posted on the town's website.
Oh, they are. Okay, great.
Yeah. On the dates when they were discussed, I think when this first came up, whatever date that was, whether it was July 13th or June 29th or one of those meetings, I think it was in June. So yeah, they're posted on those agenda sections.
Thank you.
Sure. You can probably do a Google of just Bristol Police conversation and they'll pop.
Okay. So Select Board, I just want to check in. Are you all on board with Chris being the facilitator for this?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Do we need a motion to that effect, Val?
I don't think so.
Okay. Consensus. Okay. Thank you, Chris. You're on board.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And so I'll follow up with you all on how we structure conversation number 1, and then follow up after that meeting to to see about what sort of the what next.
What's next steps? Yep. That'd be great.
Meetings in 2 weeks from today, is that correct?
That's actually
Next week.
next
next
Monday.
Next Monday.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Great. Next on the agenda, Bobcat Cafe food truck use permit and Bartlett Falls 2-week trial period.
So communication has been limited and feedback. Apparently, Bobcat has gone up to Bartlett Falls last Saturday and this past Saturday. I have not heard of any feedback about that.
So here's my question based on what we told them. Did they ever get you the insurance?
No, not to me anyway.
Right.
Whether it went to somebody else, I don't know. I did ask for it.
Right. And they were supposed to give us 12 hours notice before they showed up there. And
I reminded them of that.
I haven't seen that. I mean,
No.
I went by there. I did not see their truck, but I have no idea what time they were there. So, if I'd have known they were there, I would have at least gone up to double check to see how well the garbage was and how it was cleaned up and seen how it was set up. But I had no idea they were there. So I don't know if anybody else saw them up there or was up that way. Go ahead, Bruce.
I went I went by both days that they were there. Didn't notice an increase in traffic. After they were gone, it looked like they picked up the garbage. I didn't see trash around there.
Did you know they were there or did you just happen to drive by and see them?
No, they told me both times they were going to be there. The second time, they forgot that it was 12-hour notice, but they did get a hold of me a few hours before they were there.
Okay. So at least you knew.
Yes.
Somebody knew. Okay.
Did we specify who they needed to contact? Perhaps they thought contacting Bruce was the way to go, or were they supposed to contact
Supposed
the
to be both
office?
me and Bruce.
You
Yeah.
and Bruce.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't remember.
So we gave them a 2-week permit and then we reevaluate. So we just need to decide whether we're going to let them continue and when we're going to cut them off. Like, is there a deadline? Like, no later, their last date could be Labor Day weekend.
Maybe it's best to ask them when they might want to stop doing it, as opposed to limiting them. But I'm happy to continue if Bruce has checked out and seen that there haven't been issues both times I've been there. I think that's a positive outcome to their permit and their request. So I think I'm fine with continuing it.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't say we would continue it as long as when they give us the insurance, the proof of insurance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That would be nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Peter, Joel, you have any thoughts, concerns, questions?
I don't have any problem with continuing it, and I would say, they're not going to be up there when the snow starts flying and that, because nobody's going to stop. So I wouldn't be opposed to staying, through the summer season or through this year. So that next year they knew they had to reapply.
Mm-hmm. And next year we might get 10 people apply.
That's true.
So when you say
But it's never really been. I don't think the sales are quite what they expect them to be.
Right.
Because the last 2 vendors that have tried it haven't stayed there very long.
They never went back the next year.
That's correct.
So when you suggested staying through the end of this year, do you mean through October?
Summer season. So define what summer season is.
Yeah.
Why don't we say,
Technically, people say Labor Day, but
why don't we say Columbus Day? By Monday,
Columbus Day, which is October 10th.
October.
October something, beginning of October.
based on, they can't go back up until they get the insurance to who, if
Right.
they haven't gotten the insurance to anyone. Valerie needs to check that, I guess. Might be in Aaron's office, or Eric's waving his hand, so.
Eric, you got something you want to chime in?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if we notice an increase of trash up there, then I would revisit it and maybe pull their permit till they pick it up, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with it. I agree with Eric. I'd say if no trash, if insurance is provided, has not been provided, it needs to be provided before their next visit to their, still notify the police chief and Valerie And any increase in trash that's not picked up, their permit will be automatically pulled.
We should say increase in trash, you know, are you saying anywhere along Bartlett's that may not even be theirs, you know?
Where we said that they needed to keep picked up. In our first week, 2 weeks ago, we said.
In the public vicinity of where they are.
Right.
I mean, if they're down at Bartlett's, I don't think up to Circle Current, they need to, no.
Okay. All right.
And the reason why we wanted them to include me in the contact was so that I can let you guys know. I can let Bill and Eric know, just a quick heads up, hey, they're going to be up there. If you're driving by or in the area, let us know what you think, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. No. That good for
Also,
everybody?
Yep.
Mhm.
Play
Also-
by the rules or don't play at all.
And remember that it's not Columbus Day anymore. It's Indigenous Peoples Day.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that new day is.
Does somebody want
It'll take
to,
us a while to get used to the new naming.
Yeah.
Okay.
somebody want to memorialize that in a motion?
Thought I did, except didn't use, I used Columbus Day.
Okay, that was Jolie's motion. Somebody
Okay,
want
so
to
yeah,
second?
okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Wait a minute, Tasha, can you read back that back to me?
You're afraid of what you're agreeing to?
Well, no, I just want to. Tasha,
I need to reword a little bit, but this is what I wrote down initially. Joe Bouvier moved to approve Bobcat Cafe food truck to use Bartlett's Falls through Indigenous People Day. However, they must show proof of insurance before going back up, and trash must be picked up.
And Bruce and I still need to be notified in advance.
right, that was in there. And any trash that's not picked up, and we feel that it's overabundance of trash is not being picked up, the license can be pulled.
Permit.
Permit can be.
Permit can be pulled. Okay. Okay. All those in favor? Wave, yell, whatever. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Okay, next. Consider resolution to support establishments that require COVID-19 facial coverings. Which I
Kind of
think
a
this
moot point in it now.
might be moot point.
Well, it certainly is a moot point now. It wasn't at the time we wanted to
Right.
have it back on the agenda. But one question I posed, because the governor's order doesn't take effect until August 1st, so there's a few days lag. But even just if you still want to issue it in anyway, or not, it's just a question if you want to issue it anyway.
Why don't we say we support the governor's move to require masks in all stuff?
Second, I second that, Peter. Agree with that.
But do you want that just as a motion in the minutes, or did you want a resolution to that effect?
I just think a resolution is duplicative.
Okay.
I mean, to what he's already doing, but that's just my opinion.
We
Speaker,
support the
Say
governor's
your
requirement of
words
masks.
one more time.
What's that, Tasha?
Can you, Speaker, say his words one more time?
We
We
support the
support-
governor's resolution or mandate of mask wearing.
Okay, so you're, just to be clear, because I remember typing in this before that, and I remember Peker saying that he doesn't agree with it. So are we changing our minds or?
All I'm doing is supporting the governor.
Okay, I'm just,
I'm
I'm putting
supporting
that out there.
I'm supporting the governor's mandate to require masks be worn in establishments.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I think having the establishments have the support of the state is obviously greater support than what the town can offer. The town support obviously is still very good to have, especially for our local downtown businesses. The fact that it's only a few days until the actual mandate goes into effect, I don't think we need to have our own resolution. If it was a longer period of time, like 2 weeks, I perhaps would vote to have the resolution still. But as it stands, because we're so close, I think not having it is fine. And I hopefully, each business will be able to post that it's a statewide mandate now.
So here's my concern, because my understanding is he mandated that, but then in his next statement, he said they aren't going to find people or enforce it. Is that what he said? So my question is So what does it mean? I mean, what does it mean for our businesses? What does it mean for Bruce? You know, how is this going to be enforced?
Well, they did talk about the potential for enforcement and fining, but it
Right.
wasn't defined. I don't know. I don't know if Bruce or anyone else has more information regarding that and how you would actually mandate or enforce this mandate, which doesn't seem to be enforceable. I don't know if Bruce, you have any thoughts about that?
At this point in time, if somebody calls us and we respond, we educate the public as to what the governor's mandate is and suggest they follow it. That's the extent of our enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's just hope everybody says, okay, they mandated it, let's just do it.
So I thought I heard Peaker possibly make that statement as a motion and Joel seconded it.
Yeah, Peaker made the motion to
Express support for the governor's.
express support of the governor's
Okay.
mandate, right?
Okay.
And Joel did second it. Okay. Is there any more discussion about that? Chris, go ahead.
If it would be helpful, I can send you the exact language from the governor's office, just so you'll know sort of precisely what you're supporting.
I think I printed it off today, so I have it already.
Okay.
Val, if you don't have it, I can get it to you.
I've seen it on the websites and the different.
Okay.
But I didn't.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
just one thing, sorry. I'd just like to say, in light of the letter that was received, knowing that, you know, not only are some of the kids in our community who are working getting harassed, but we have adults that are also being harassed. And I feel like this is really important for us, even if it is 3 days and it's just supporting what the governor says. I really think it's important for us as a community and as a board to take a stand one way or the other on it. So I feel really good about the fact that we're doing that here.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Say aye, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Eric, did you want to add something? Okay.
I think he was registering his opposition.
I don't think I saw that button. Okay, next item, coronavirus COVID-19 update, preparations, response, and impacts to municipal operations.
So there's not a whole lot new to report with this. The office is still closed. We can anticipate that the governor is going to continue to extend the emergency order. And the last time we discussed these things, the opinion or conclusion was that just to maintain the status quo for the time being. We did issue the communication to employees about wearing masks in the town offices, in the town buildings, on a more regular basis. I'm not exactly.
Is that being followed? I'm sure there's some objections, but is it being followed?
From the instances I've observed, yes, but my observations are limited.
I know it's probably not being followed 100%. So the question is, if it's not being followed, then what can department heads do? What is the recourse?
Well, one question that was asked is if physical distance of more than 6 feet can be maintained inside a building, are the masks absolutely necessary? Some guidance would suggest yes. Some guidance suggests is silent on it and just focuses on the physical distancing and when masks are required.
I mean, even the governor's mandate, if I read it right, he said facial coverings inside and out if you cannot maintain social distancing.
Right.
So to me, that says if you're inside and you can maintain social distancing, but what does everybody else take from that?
That's what I agree with.
I guess my concern would be that if I decide to walk down the hall and you don't know I'm there and you come out of your office, that you're potentially putting yourself or myself at risk. I mean, that's the way that's my reasoning behind supporting the idea that when they're out of their office, that they have their mask on. Because you don't know if Valerie is out of her office up talking to Sharon and she's comfortable without her mask and she talks to Sharon and somebody comes in and she has to pass them in the hallway, you've eliminated that isolation distance. And I think, what I do personally, but what I expect when I'm in public are two different things. And if I have the expectation that when I go in that office, that if I meet somebody in the hall, they're going to have a mask on, then and that's what we've set for a policy. I think that's what should happen.
Well, I think, in the town offices, to me, it's a little different than in like the town garage where there's so much space. If you've got 2 trucks in there and they're each working on a truck, they're more than 6 feet apart. The only time, they should always have a mask with them, so for when they get into that situation where they might be within close proximity. To me, the town office, if you're out of your office, you need to have it on because you just never know who's coming in and out.
Right.
Or who might be in the building.
I'm not nearly as concerned about the highway garage as I am the town office.
Yeah.
Just because I don't anticipate anybody other than the employees being in the highway garage. Whereas the town offices, you could have any member of the public there. I know they're supposed to call ahead, but I'm sure there are people that beat on the door to get in.
They do. Darla, what did you want to say?
I don't know. I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry, I lost that thought.
So, since Eric's here, we can say to him, if they're in the town garage and they can maintain more than 6 feet, then they don't need their masks, but they have to have their mask with them in case they become within close proximity. And they can't be in the break room without a mask.
Michelle, I went and got my mask, and this is what I'm expecting for our employees and all of our employees is if they're within 6 feet like this, if they're in a town garage, it's down here, it's ready to go. Not, let me get it out of my pocket. I think down here is fine. Now, if only one man's working over in the green garage, I think then it could go in his pocket. But if you hear somebody coming in, it at least goes in the ready position. That's how we're doing it at work. Somebody, when I step out of my office, I got to go like this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Eric, you hearing that?
Yeah, we'll just stay outside.
No, you can be inside. Just have the masks ready to go.
I'm not going to wear like a bulldog. We'll just stay outside.
You still have to
Eric,
maintain social distancing.
Eric, is it multiple employees at the town garage that are complaining about this, or is it just yourself personally?
It's all of us.
And what are the main reasons of not wanting to wear the mask?
Personal opinion, I don't think it's necessary. That's my opinion. What the other guys think, I'm not 100% sure what they think.
I agree. I think if you have the distance in the space, if you have buildings that are open and have good air circulation, your likelihood of becoming infected if one of your members is infected is much less than if you were working in the town offices, given that incredibly small space. Even with air conditioning and things like that, and it has an HRV, it has an air circulator in there, which is good for air circulation, but you're in such a small space. I think the town garages, if you can maintain enough distance, I think you're probably okay without the mask. I do think Joel's suggestion of having the mask ready and not in the back pocket is a good one, and it doesn't seem to me that that's a very hard thing to have, your mask right there. But yeah, if you guys can maintain distance, I don't see any issues with that, especially if you can open up doors and have good air circulation.
Yeah, we'll finagle it around where we're outside doing stuff, and if somebody needs a service, I'll just make sure that it's only that one person in the garage, so we won't have to deal with that.
So Eric, when the guys were working on the lower notch road there doing that ditching and stuff, and and they jumped in the small red truck to go somewhere, did they both wear their mask or neither one wear a mask? Are they, or they don't ride together?
We have screwed up a couple times and rode together, but for the most part, we use our own, each person has its own vehicle.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
No, that'll do it.
Okay.
Unless anybody else has anything else to bring up.
Anybody? Okay, move on to the next. Upcoming paving and Main Street sidewalk project updates.
Let's see. So folks had a chance to review Natalie Boyle's notes and my summary and my report. Things are moving along on Main Street. Hopefully the ramps in front of Kimball's and Walkies will be, if they're not already gone, will be gone very soon, and all the steps will be in place. The permanent traffic signs will be done this week. They're expected. I have not heard anything back from VTrans about whether they would be willing to accept or include the no turn, no right turn when pedestrians are present at the intersection. Did select board members have a chance to see the image that I included in my town admin report?
Mm-hmm.
Are folks okay? We kind of just made an executive decision to explore getting having that included in the project in lieu of, or instead of, the electronic sign that comes on when the pedestrian walk signal comes on, because we only have that available on one intersection. And we know now that the equipment, the overhanging arms of the streetlights can't support additional electronic no turn signs on the other parts of the intersection. So this static metal installation was thought to be an alternative.
I mean, I don't know that I have a problem with it. I mean, something's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, these were recommended by VTrans. It's sort of the electronic signs, as well as having the issue of needing the wiring and the weight. They sometimes it wasn't as clear a message as the ones that they suggested, which is the image that Val shared in the report. And I'd like to see them up, since it is a four-way crosswalk. We don't have interchanging or staggered. It would be nice to get those if we can get them. The cost is fairly minimal, and since they're doing the signage anyway, if they're able to include it, I think that would be a very positive thing for pedestrians in Bristol.
And if they're not able or willing to include it as part of the VTrans project, then I think one cost estimate that a VTrans engineer put out there was that in the area of $1,000 for all three signs to be installed. So I don't know when that decision would need to be made, but we might want to think about if it ends up needing to be a town decision, a town investment. Would select board members be okay with just going ahead and adding that into our project, or do you want to have a chance to think about it later?
I would rather have it done while the contractor's there doing it. That way they're placed where VTrans wants them placed, and we don't have to worry about putting something where we feel it should go and not have it be in compliance. I also feel that
you can yell at the state, right?
Yeah. I also feel that the idea that we can't put the bulldog on the poles is a bunch of malarkey, because we didn't decide to put that one on until after the fact. It was an add-on. That no turn sign was an add-on after the poles were already up. So somebody's blowing smoke somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good to know.
Well, I on a different note, I wouldn't mind having 4 of those things, but I won't say take the doghouse down, because we paid good money for that thing. But, you know, if somebody's over by coming up from the funeral parlors and they push the button over there and want to cross towards Shaw's, that crosswalk, and you're in the right turn lane on North Street, you can't turn, and there's nobody in the crosswalk, because the bulldog comes on no matter where you push the button. And I'd like to see it only the Bulldog come on to represent what it's representing. No right turn off from North Street. So if somebody's in that crosswalk on Main Street from the north side to the south side of Main, or not, excuse me.
Unfortunately, I don't think that can be changed. I mean, it's an all-way crossing, so
Yeah, I
it's
know.
all or
Yeah.
nothing. Right.
You sit over there and wait. There's nobody in that crosswalk.
Mhm.
30 seconds.
I've seen it where there was two people though crossing at different spots.
Right.
Right.
Works.
30 seconds is not going to kill
I
you.
was
Right.
just gonna say that.
Thank you. Yes.
I was just gonna say that.
Jill's got stuff to do.
No, I get that, but it's
Busy man.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I may have misspoken. I think I'm the one that told Ian they couldn't take the weight, so that I would take responsibility for that. What I meant is the arm itself isn't designed for the weight, but you could put it on the pole like we did the other one for North Street. I probably misspoke to Ian when I told him that. It's the arm itself that's not designed to take the weight.
Right, and it's mounted pretty close to the actual vertical pole, so that's probably okay. But yeah, you're right. If you're going further out, it seems like okay.
Exactly. And if it mounts closer to the pole, like the one on as you're coming down North Street looking, that there is fine. Then it's just a matter of the wiring issue.
Right, and it seems like the fact that VTrans is recommending these signs and saying that actually they're clearer than the giant red sign, and the cost is much less. And we don't have to run the wiring. It seems like this is a no-brainer to go with these, and hopefully that'll have some impact with the crosswalk.
Yeah.
If it would be pleasing to the state, I'd be willing to purchase the signs out of my budget if they would be willing to install them.
So these, I have to remember what I saw. These are no right turn ever on red?
Yield to pedestrians.
Okay, yield to pedestrians. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, which is part of the complication of why they don't like the red arrow. It says it isn't as clear as they would like it. Initially, they thought, oh, this is going to be great. This will work. And the reason I think, A, in terms of cost, we don't want to take down what we've already paid for, but B, it is the only lane that is a unique right turn on red lane. All the others are normal lanes. So there is a reason, I think, and this is VTrans suggested that, there is a reason to keep that large one that we already have there for that lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the idea of putting one on at that right turn lane anyway, off of North Street would add more clarity if we had.
Right, that's true. If we had enough space for it, I guess you could place it right next to it.
Right.
And then there's no excuse. And I did see, I have to say, I was walking, I pressed the crosswalk, and I think it was Bruce. He was in the Shaw's or Walgreens parking lot and happened to be pulling out, and someone, even with the large sign saying no turn on red, they turned red. And it was just by pure chance that I think an officer was there and pulled them over because they witnessed that. So, I think as we can put up another sign there, that might be helpful. It might, two signs might help people not to turn on red, especially if the crosswalk's on.
They're a very clean looking sign. I think they're very easy to understand. And I think it'd be good on that intersection. My first thought was, how busy is it going to be? How much signage do we need in that one space? I was concerned about that, and looking at the example, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I move we install that sign on all four corners.
So it's going to be more than $1,000 then, right?
Well, let's see if VTrans, I appreciate that motion, or maybe it can be, say, support, that the select board supports the installation of the sign. And
I want them on all four, regardless of whether they pay for them. I would suggest that we reach out and see if they would pay for them first. But my motion is to have them on all four, regardless of who pays for them.
Good.
I'm not saying that we're going to pay for them. I'm just saying I'm making the motion that we put those signs on all four corners.
At the state's expense first. Can somebody second that?
I did.
Okay. Any more discussion about it? All those in favor say aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, now motion carried. Ian, did you need to share your screen?
Yeah, I was just thinking of other updates. The ramps are removed, so the Walkie step, the Jim Dumont step, and the Kimball step is all done, and
Oh,
the
good.
ramps are removed, which is great. They've cleaned up the area a little bit over by Basin Street. I want to share a couple images about the Basin Street. I talked to the neighbor on the corner, just in the corner of Basin and East, and she raised a concern about how the sidewalk was rebuilt there. So let's see if I can share these. That thing too. Okay, so can you see that?
Yep.
So this is the new one, and for some reason they cut into the ground, and it's now curved, and it curves and then matches the road, which is already at an incredibly steep angle anyway. So I feel that they've made it worse than it was. The original one is flat. It's flat all the way to the edge, and then it started to curve down, and it probably wasn't that great anyway, but it seemed like it's better than what they've replaced it with. And I just have a concern about that. If anyone is actually traveling in a wheelchair or sort of walking assisting device, that you start to just pitch towards the Basin Street and could go down it versus sort of safely getting off the sidewalk. But I don't know if we can do anything about that. Obviously, there was a reason why they cut into the ground about a foot or two, but I'm just confused why it was done that way. The other side, I think, is the same as what it was, but this side, I don't know. I don't know why they did it like that. And
They did that for drainage,
about that.
so that the water would pitch down the hill.
My
I
guess
guess so,
is
yeah.
it's probably something to do with being ADA compliant. That's why they went back so far and it pitches. I'm not sure exactly why it leans to the south so much.
Right.
Unless it's to match the road. But my guess is the from the cone down, that's where they had to go to make the pitch to the road ADA compliant.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that there's not a drop. Is that what you mean, Peter?
The distance of drop from the cone to the pavement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and it's gradual. I'm guessing, I haven't walked it, Ian, you have. Is it gradual from the cone to the pavement?
Yes.
From that
much
point?
much more than it was before. Before it was fairly flat, and then you'd have that kind of dip right at the end, and that's probably why it's probably more dangerous with the dip as opposed to this gradual lean. It just, when you see it, you're like, oh wow, I'm going to just start to go pitching down the road if I'm not careful. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks like it might tip a little. The reason I would there again, I would guess that the reason it's tipped so much is so that it matches the pavement. But
yeah.
The reason it's down is so that it's ADA compliant. From the point of the cone to the road, you're only allowed so much pitch.
Okay.
Ian,
yeah. Yep.
Ian, after you and I talked and walked the main street there tonight, I did go down there and look at that, and the truncated dome there at the crosswalk is right. That's the same pitch as the road is in the basin.
I see.
And the recommendation would be is possibly after this project done, or maybe they can do it, is maybe as we're all looking at this now on the left side, we put a rail down through there, a handrail, so a person walking or a wheelchair wouldn't start just going hard left and going down over the hill. There'd be a railing there. That'd be my recommendation. But I think you should ask the engineers there. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm not an engineer. I don't want to practice. So, but
okay.
I've seen it doing in Middlebury. They've done rails before on ones that are steep like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems it's much more different than it was, and so it could catch people. Similar to walkie step that wasn't as deep, where people are almost tripping off that. I know that people walking might have concerns about that. But everything else seems to be going smoothly. Hopefully we'll get some stamped concrete either the end of this week or beginning of next week, which will be night work again. They still have the crosswalk infrastructure to put in for the National Bank and Vermont Tree Goods. And we still need to, if we haven't reached out already, Eric, to the Hendy and talk about the drainage between the Hatch block and the Thomas block. I don't know if that's on your list still, or if you've reached out to him.
No, I haven't yet, but I will.
Okay, and that's all complete now, so it would just be in his court if he did what he decides to do with that water drainage.
All right, yeah, I'll reach out to him.
All
But
right, so I
Ian,
have a couple questions.
Michelle, can
Joel, did you ever talk to them about the truncated domes between the alleyway?
Ian did. Yeah, we talked.
And what did they say?
So they said because it's a private road, they don't put in, the state doesn't generally put in those truncated domes or the bumps.
Except that there was one there when they took it out, so.
There, not by the bank, there wasn't. I looked at past text
Okay.
pictures, there actually wasn't. I remember the one being there, but there wasn't. And it's similar to over by Kimball's and Art on Main, there was nothing ever there because again, it's a private road.
I guess.
So then my next question is about, you know, where they paved the gully sections, which I guess they're done, but the one up by town there, I assume they're not done because there's like 6 inches between the pavement and the stormwater drain.
Is that the one just past Hatch going east? Those two?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's two there. There's two there, isn't there? That
Yeah.
the pavement is
They've
not
got to
up
put some
to
of
it.
that to that drain. Yeah, they're going to be another coat on there.
Okay. All right.
Well, Michelle, they refurbished the covers. If you're seeing the gravel around the catch basin, they actually refurbished the catch basin tops. So that's why it's still gravel. But there is another layer of pavement going on that.
Eric, are you checking in terms of the areas where they're doing those and looking and readapting the catch basins? Are you checking those yourself just to see how they're doing and making sure that it's what we want them to do?
I haven't, but I can stop down tomorrow and take a look at them.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be, if you're able to, it might be worth it just because we don't want to be sort of caught off guard if they're doing something and it causes us
Doesn't
more
work.
problems. Yeah, it doesn't work or it's isn't as it should be. I mean, I know they know what they're doing, but just as we should be looking at that too, just with it. I've looked at the Main Street stuff, which is I sort of know about that a bit. But I feel if maybe you can pop down and look at those just to make sure it's what you want them or how they should be.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
2 last questions. Val, did they work with Cy on the water stuff that he was concerned about and they fixed those?
In progress. They did on some.
Okay.
And some of the ones that VTUMS felt that VTrans was responsible for, they did fix 2, but then refused to do the others, feeling that they weren't responsible. So VTUMS went ahead and took care of them, or is planning to.
Okay. And what about the drainage issues that, like in front of Alan's house and where it was pooling?
The plan at this point is to try to dig in a swale toward the easternmost driveway culvert, which may also need to be modified to lower it in order to catch that water.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead, John.
Thank you. One is just a quick question. Have you guys ever thought about the wisdom, or maybe not lack of wisdom, but the idea of putting painting crisscross crosswalks at the main intersection on Main Street and North Street? The length of time for those walk signs, like you could go corner to corner, catty corner, you know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
You're talking about diagonal crosswalks?
And I've seen that painted in other places. I don't know the wisdom or whatever of doing so. I don't know how long that paint might last, for example, in a busy intersection. But anyway, it just struck me the other day because I've seen people do it. I've done it myself, go catty corner there. And it's very inviting, you know, it's quicker.
I do it all the time.
Yeah. So anyway, that was one thought. But the other thing, I believe at an earlier meeting where I asked, excuse me, about this project in regards to the street lights, I think, Ian, you mentioned that there are hoods and or blocking units that go around the lights. Those will be installed as part of the project. That's not an afterthought, is it?
They should be in there now. It's not that hoods. I think it's the way that the bulb is designed. I've looked at them. I've gone and looked at them at night, and there seem to be different. If you look at the intensity of the bulb, if you're standing on the sidewalk versus the intensity if you're on the road edge, it is different. So I think they're already installed. I don't know the specifics if it's an actual hood or if it's something that's designed as part of the lamp itself. But I can find that out from them because I'm curious myself too. But it looks like looking at the light at night, it doesn't, and this is also just from memory about the previous lights and knowing how those worked and how those were designed, it seems like there isn't as much light escaping out the top as the previous lights had and also hitting the tops of the buildings. I see a lot more light on that first level of storefront and the light on the sidewalk and the road as well. I don't know if you've seen something different to that.
I haven't. I haven't really taken a close look. I haven't been thinking about it, but I'll do that. Maybe it's a moot point. And I'll just say, as a landlord, I have a tenant on Main Street that has a very brightly lit window at night, and I've spoken to him about that. It's going to calm that down a little bit.
Good, thank you.
Just to
The
assure
lighting
you
going
that,
in the other direction?
yeah, he had all kinds of crazy amounts of light in there, and I've spoken with him about it over time. But I'm actually making it part of his new lease, so that will be that will comport with what I believe the spirit of the town's language on light sharing or keeping it at home is. Anyway, in case anybody wondered.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, John.
Okay.
I have a question, Michelle.
Go ahead, Tasha.
So the bump at the top of Stony Hill seems to get more bumpier and bumpier. And I wondered, is that not going to be fixed until the paving's done? Or, because I remember coming through to Mom and Dad's house that literally, I think there's a giant pothole the size of, I just felt like it was huge coming up, I think winter time, then thinking it would get filled. And then I think because of the project, it didn't. And then they, took up the gravel or whatever, the pavement. And then now that it's uneven, it's really like you're hitting it hard, even if you're going like 25, 20 up the hill. So.
And I think that was filled in during the winter time. And then once they chewed it up, then it's slowly gotten worse. But
Can we ask them to revisit that bump just because more has worn away as traffic has used that space? Maybe just to reevaluate, because we're probably at least a month out from getting our final top coat. So that's another month of travel. I know there are a few other areas that have sort of bumps, but that is a large one coming up Stony Hill and getting onto our main drag there.
yeah, I can tell you Maple Street has got a pretty sharp drop.
And transition, right.
Okay.
We have a ton
You
of
got
them in
that-
Virgins too.
What's that, Tasha?
Yeah, we have a ton of them in Virgins.
Yeah. So Val, you'll check with them on that. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Anything else on that?
Nope, that's
Related
it.
to this agenda item, you might have noticed the Pike paving estimate in
Oh,
the
yeah.
collection of material. And so it can give us an update on the upcoming paving projects.
Michelle, I know they got to do another coat from, the big paving project, Main Street East and West. But to me, there seems to be some awful ripples in some places. Like the pipe that I think Masterson put in right there by the Catholic Church, there's an awful bump right there. And down by the fire station, there's an awful ripple in the road. I just hope for sure those will be taken care of when the final paving gets taken care of.
My suggestion, Joel, if you've noticed these, send a list to Valerie and myself, and then we'll make sure when we're doing our final sort of check. And I don't know, Valerie, do we have the ability? I know we did like a sort of a kind of a final walkthrough just on Main Street. Do we have say in terms of the paving project throughout the entire stretch there, or do we not? Does the town not have any like walkthrough kind of ability with that because it's
If we want it, we can do it.
Okay. I'd say do it. This is our one opportunity to do it, so let's put it in. I'm happy to join and do that and walk through. But Joel, if you have specifics and you notice when you're driving, do make a list and send that along, and we can make sure that that's hopefully taken care of.
If you're coming into town, Valerie or Ian, drive through over to the fire station and back, over to Airport Drive, turn around, come back, and you'll feel the ripples right there by the fire station and one by the Catholic Church, right at the end of Park.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, on that.
Okay, so paving, Valerie?
Yes. That's what
Yep,
I was
so we
going to
have
ask.
the cost estimate from Pike to do Elm, Munsell, Taylor, lower notch and lower hard scrabble. So, and Eric can give more information about that, assuming, or if we get the go ahead to go forward and accept that quote, then they'll schedule us, and it's likely to be around the end of September.
Mhm. I think she's looking to you, Eric.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, not really.
The paving. So we're paving, what did I say? Hard scrabble?
Lower.
Lower hard scrabble. That's the stuff we talked about when we were on the bus trip.
Right. That's just
Okay.
going to be the shim.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Eric,
Yeah.
I talked with Peter the other day. Was it more than just a shim now, or are you going to dig out a little bit of that?
Yeah. Peter and I talked about it.
Which I agree
and
on.
he goes, huh?
Which I agree. I think that's a great idea. You went a little further and dug out the crap. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it, and he came up with a good idea of digging that out and putting some road base in, and then shimming over the top of that. So what's we plan on doing?
Okay.
And that new bid figure is what, 103,000, Val? Is that what I recall?
Yeah.
The only thing is Munsell. Do you want me to go ahead and pave it now? Or do you want me to wait until install the drain system that you want?
You won't get that drainage system in this year, will you, Eric?
No.
You think?
No, we won't.
Well, are you that drainage system gonna be out into the road? I thought it was all off the road.
No, it'll be half of the structures will actually be in the road.
Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
Is Munsell Avenue any worse than Pine Street?
No.
Okay. I just say if you had it in by July 1st of next year, then put it in.
Yeah, we could probably get it next spring. Get the structures in.
Peter, were you gonna say something?
Just that there's no way we could stay in our right away and put those structures in without being in the pavement.
Yep.
I don't want to pave it and then have to dig it up in the spring.
I totally agree.
All right.
I'd say
so
that-
we'll
Go ahead, Eric.
postpone that one until spring.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
So given that, do we have, sorry, darling.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, I'm grateful that they came through and filled in some of the holes that on Munsell. It was getting pretty ruddy at one spot, but I'm not gonna say much more because it's right in front of my house. So whenever you get it done, Eric is great with me.
Yeah, I needed to do it. I was planning on doing it that day anyways, and so it needed to be done.
Eric, did you run out of pavement over by my street or no?
Did we run out of pavement by your street?
He
Not
told
yet.
you it's gonna need more than pavement to fix that hole.
Yeah, that should be all dug out and repaved.
I'm just afraid you're going to catch your plow on it and roll it right under a truck someday.
Yeah.
No, he's
well,
not. He's worried about himself.
We can, if we get time this fall, we can rip it out and pave it. We can do that one by hand. That's a short section.
Okay. Do we need a
So
motion now, or are we all good with that?
So it might not be a bad idea to accept the Pike
The bid minus
Munsell to be
Munsell?
revisited in the spring, Munsell Avenue.
Wait, so if
Somebody
it's
want to
not
make that
Munsell,
motion?
can I ask a quick question? Sorry. If it's not
Sure.
Munsell, can we choose to do another road, or does it just gets bumped and we would do less in terms of their bid?
It's gonna have to get bumped because that money in the budget, if he's gonna do it next spring, he's gonna need it for that.
That's true.
Right. So do we have the option to pave another road at the same amount of money, or is it that not how that's designed?
Well,
No, but what I'm saying is, if we bump it to spring, that line item for the budget for that, he'll need in the spring.
Oh, right. I see what you mean. We're just putting it off, really. It's not.
Right.
It's not something we can
It's the
use
same
now.
fiscal
And
year.
yeah, right. Okay, got it.
I mean, if
Oh,
we
that's
were
right.
doing different fiscal years, then we could.
Right.
but-
Got it. Understood. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Somebody want to make that motion?
I make a motion, we allow the highway department to accept Pike's bid minus the Munsell Avenue Road street and pave in the spring.
Okay, somebody want a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Say aye, raise your hand, whatever. Okay, any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next. Consider whether to increase trash services in the downtown.
I wanted to say.
You folks had a chance to
interrupt.
review.
Okay, wait a minute. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Wanted to say goodnight. I was feeling, I didn't want to just slip away from your meeting. So thank you for the hospitality. Good to see you all.
Bye,
All right, thanks.
Good night.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good night.
You too.
He's gonna miss the exciting discussion about trash disposal.
Oh, it's gonna get great.
So if you have a chance to review the notes, so we received a quote from R&L Rubbish for additional trash services, 2 different scenarios, one in which the Public Works folks handles that and brings the trash to the facility for Saturday pickup at no extra cost to the town, no actual cash outlay other than buying trash bags, and maybe renting or buying something to store the trash in. Or that they would do it in an extra day for $55 extra a week.
There are other trash people out there because I know they don't come in. He said he only has one driver that comes on that day, so they're not here. Can't we check with other people? Like, I know Wade Acker now does it. I don't know. Casella's would probably be more expensive. Who else? I mean,
You got a few. You obviously got Casella. You got PDS that comes to Bristol. But I make a motion we go with R&L for $55. I mean, I'll tell you, we spend that at our branch for our 190-gallon toter. And now how many barrels that R&L going to pick up on the main street? I'm not sure we're going to get it any cheaper than that. And got to realize R&L does the fire for nothing. Charge us anything over there because that's one of their gifts to us. I think $755 to keep the main street a little better looking is not a lot of money through November 1st or, somewhere around no longer than December 1st. And then go back to just once a week pickup.
I mean, I don't know. I know Wade Acker for his residential charges $45 a month.
Right. But that's one 90-gallon toter, right?
I don't know. That's why I said it wouldn't hurt to even just ask him. I mean, he may have a different rate, commercial versus residential, but I wonder because of the fact that, then who do we, well, no, I picked it up on Tuesday, ABC trash hauler picked it up on Tuesday and then it's overflowing on Friday and they say, then we're going like this with the fingers pointing who's picking it up who.
I think we should stay with one. If we're going to switch, we switch them all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to get a price, Michelle, I say we price everything we're doing with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we're going to do that, then we just put it out to bid for the whole thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I think that the neatest and cleanest way to do it, and for $55 to pick up all those barrels, I don't think that's I think that's a very reasonable price. I wouldn't do it for that. It's going to cost us more than that to have our town employees do it.
That's what
By the time they break down what they're doing, go get it. We find something to put it in. I just don't see it being any cheaper.
Well, I wasn't even personally considering our town employees doing it. They got other things to do.
I mean, I wouldn't mind putting it, I'd go in with this, that's my motion, and then next year, maybe we put it out to bid all the trash again. R&L's did it a while, done, I think, a fairly decent job. But is R&L say, well, if I don't get the trash, I'm not doing Saturdays? That's another thing. Does Wade or PDS want to do a Saturday? I know PDS, nothing to do with Saturdays.
Yep, don't know. But, okay.
I second Joel's motion. Oh, Eric has a question.
Eric, did you have something you want to add?
Oh, I was just going to say that Wade does do Saturday because he's actually doing Starks Bros now on Saturdays.
Okay.
We just hired him to do that we gave him a year trial.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
So in my estimate, I went through at the end of October. Do folks want to put an end date or just kind of let the season play out and it is what it is?
I think end of October is fine, Valerie. I was thinking somewhere there.
I mean, this may all be, it may have to go longer if COVID's still around and they're all doing, a lot more still doing takeout. So, because that's where I think a lot of our trash comes from, is the takeout, recyclables, whatever. So, we may have to reevaluate.
You just got to get up and move when the sidewalk plow goes down through, and then sit back down, or what? That's why I said maybe by November 1st, middle of November, we'll be done with it, because they won't be putting their tables out to eat.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, the tables aren't currently out.
Well, they are in some places.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
November is fine. We can revisit that.
Mhm.
So Joel made a motion. I seconded it.
Yep. So is there any more discussion on that one?
I have some discussion in the broader sense of the trash cans, but not on this particular motion of allowing
Okay,
them to
well,
do more.
let's vote on the motion and then we'll discuss that. Okay, all those in favor? Raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Go ahead, Ian.
Well, Valerie, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to mention that in my notes, I tossed out the idea that perhaps the cost could be shared with Bristol Core.
So I have a concern with that, is that almost all of our funding, apart from my stipend that I get, is all fundraised. And so my concern would be that the people in town are paying taxes to have trash removed. And I'm also then asking them and paying from money that they've donated to then have trash removed. And I don't necessarily feel that that's in the wheelhouse of Bristol Core. Like, we're very happy to support beautification, but I think trash removal is a different subject.
Anybody else have a comment on that? Okay.
I think if we stay the course right now, and then maybe in another year, if we put it out to bid or something, we ask for, maybe stipend from then, when they can start doing fundraising and things like their Pocock Rocks or things like that. They obviously didn't have any of that, so they didn't make any money like everybody else. So right now, I'm willing to eat it until November. Then we'll relook at it.
I don't necessarily see it as their problem. As much as I'd like to, I don't see it as their problem. I don't see, the number of people that come. It's a 5-town community that uses those restaurants and eateries, and it's us that's having to take care of the trash. That's the part of it that annoys me, and I don't think it's the Corps' responsibility to have to take care of that trash as much as I'd like to push it that way.
Right.
Okay.
Especially when 2/3 of the Corps are not restaurants or eateries.
Yes.
Right. Probably saying to themselves, why am I helping out the 3 or 5 eateries on Main Street with my Corps money?
It may be, maybe the simpler thing to do is, if we start seeing, we approach these businesses that we're seeing all of their trash in these barrels, and say, something's got to happen. Something's got to happen here, because the taxpayers of Bristol are paying for your trash. I don't know what the answer is, but.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I mean, we talked about that before in terms of, does Covers put out trash, but then trash that isn't theirs goes into the bin. So that's the one thing. I have to say that, so I looked at, obviously this is this is the thing that I really like to talk about. But I have to say that, so I made a change to all the trash cans. I cut each of the holes larger on both the round one, which is for recyclables, as well as the one that you put trash in, and I think that's helped a lot. So I did that about 2 weeks ago, and I think that's helped a lot in terms of stuff building up. It's a much larger opening, you can throw it right in. There are some issues, as Valerie said in her report, that the design of them isn't the greatest, but I think we'll stick with them for now, just because they're expensive to replace. And that's something maybe Cora would look into, in terms of if we did want to replace, some research on that and see if we can get better receptacles. It was Core's sort of grant application that got those here. Not that it should fall on us in terms of blame, but it wasn't town money that paid for those. It was a grant application that Core got, but obviously it wasn't the greatest choice. But having businesses, I have to say that, you know, there were two, I think it was on Sunday, they were pretty overflowing, the two that are by Covers. I did see someone who worked at Covers, who I guess was maybe cleaning. He did come over and he picked up maybe 3 or 4 pizza boxes that were on the ground and put them in the Covers trash. So I want to thank that person for doing that. But it's a whole mix. There's Walkies containers were in there. There were a lot of other takeout ones too, probably from Snaps and other places. So Peaker, yeah, it's a tough thing. I don't know how to address that. I do think the larger openings are better, and I think we stick through with R&L and look at it next year in terms of putting it out to bid. And I'm willing to sort of work on that as well, just because I want to see this fixed. I don't think trash cans going away is the answer. You know, we had someone who emailed, noticed that the trash can in the park wasn't there anymore, and was concerned about that. I know I'd like to see the one that did get taken off the park put back on. A suggestion I have is maybe putting it just at the beginning of the opening to the park, putting it right there, so we at least have 4 on each of the corners. That's something I'd like to see put back, and I did cut the holes for that too, so all 8 trash cans are all the same. And so that'll help. One, if you put that back and just put it sort of near the entrance of the park, that'll help distribute the trash that's in all the other ones overflowing. And then the second thing, to have the trash company come and pick up twice a week, I think make the greatest difference.
Yeah, when you've seen these, and I know Bruce has taken his time to pick up trash off the park when the trash can was there. But are they recycling? Are we finding trash in the recycling and then recycling in the trash? So there's really no division.
No, and I think it's the design. I think when you see 2 holes and there's one that's full, you're like, I'm just going to put it in the other hole. And I think it's just having that design. And oftentimes, because the whole top can come off, people just sort of throw stuff in, or sometimes it gets rotated. So what was once the recycling area then becomes the trash area. I also think that because R&L come and pick up one half of it on one day and a few days later pick up the other half, there's discrepancy there in terms of like having everything pick up at once and having everything empty. I will have to say that, you know, on Saturday morning when I went down, the trash ones were pretty full in one bay or cupboard. So that obviously wasn't picked up. I can't believe that it was just from a half a day that it was filled back up again. So I don't know if they're missing them, because that's happened in the past. So yeah, it's tough. We pay very little money to have our trash taken away. We probably spend far more just on copier paper for the town offices than we do paying for our trash. And it's one of the most important things I feel in the town. If you're a resident here or if you're a tourist and you pull in and park and the first thing you see is overflowing trash cans, that's your first impression of our town. And that's not good, you know, and we should spend the money to remove trash properly. I think having it done maybe twice a week, you know, for the remainder of this year, just to see how that helps. And then if it does, and we still need help, then looking at new trash cans to support better trash disposal, better recycling, I think is the next stage.
I think that's going to be the answer, is different trash cans.
Yeah,
totally
I think so
separate
too.
them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
And anything else on this topic? Okay. Next, continued consideration of consultant selection of the Public Works site and facility analysis and potential change in scope to include co-location of the new police station.
So we received this afternoon a proposal from the contractor that we're considering. I don't know if folks had a chance to review it.
I did. My quick question is that's in addition to the amount they've already put on? Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did everybody get a chance to look at that?
Yep.
I did not.
Looking at it right now.
Is there any questions about that? Peaker, did you get a chance to look at it? I know it came in late. Okay.
And the reason for this additional aspect of the proposal is because the last time the select board met, there was discussion about adding the police station into the building and facility analysis for the Public Works Department to see if there's any opportunity, a practical opportunity for co-location.
Yep.
And what we've asked them to submit additional information about is preparing the baseline site analysis with the priority for the Public Works facility, but also to see how, understand what the programming, the current and future programming needs for what a police facility would require, and to see how and if that could fit, how they could fit together.
So Peter, if you haven't had a chance, that increase is about $9,800 to do the police station.
Did the original price come down? No.
It didn't change from last week.
Right.
It's in addition to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they'll be doing a lot of the work in conjunction with each other, but that price did not come down.
Mm-hmm. And from the looks of the proposal, it looks like they'd be giving this additional scope some considerable thought.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be just a blank box.
Well, it isn't. It isn't as simple as, yeah, we're just going to throw another 50 feet on the building and it's done. It's way more involved than that.
And we've also asked them to prepare separate conceptual plans, one of just the Public Works facility and one of both together, to see how they flow together, just in case when it comes time for voter support, taxpayer support, if one succeeds and the other doesn't, then with the Public Works facility being the higher priority because that has the most urgent need. And if that passes and the other doesn't or is delayed, then perhaps it's a phased approach, but it can still be integrated later. If
you say that as the most urgent need, but Bruce's lease runs out and he doesn't have a home.
Well, I say that because we can renew the lease.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, we can probably renegotiate the lease.
We have 3 years
You
left.
won't be homeless, Bruce.
Not right away, anyway.
Yeah.
Is it 3 years left on the lease?
It is 2013.
Okay.
So what's the select board feel? You have any questions? You want a little more time to consider it? If we take too much more time, it puts our time frame.
Well, I guess I'll ask, do we go and, Valerie, now that we've added another wrinkle to this, go back and take you've interviewed our top one, and we had two that the three of us selected before COVA that we were going to interview. I wonder if we at least ask the second one for some detail.
Maybe we want to go back into or continue this in executive session where we had begun talking about that before.
Right.
I guess we'll go and talk about it in executive session.
Well, I have a question about that. So
yeah,
we're now discussing a proposal. We've given a number for the police department one, or that addition. But as a member of the public, they don't know much about this because our discussion about this previously has been in executive session, and there's no reference to what we're even talking about. We have the RFP, but we don't have anything else, or haven't shared with the public anything else yet, and yet we're talking about this. So I guess if it's a monetary thing that needs to be an executive session, I guess I would go along with that. But I feel that this should be a public thing that we talk about. We're asking taxpayers to potentially fund this, and yet we're mixing how we're talking about this. I feel that we should talk about it openly and not in executive session as a whole thing. If someone's been following just right now, they would have found out that we've decided to maybe add the police station into this, which no one would have known about before. And that just concerns me in terms of how we're delivering information to the public.
Mm-hmm. The aspect of the executive session conversations had been when we're comparing the different proposals and the judgments and some of the evaluations among the different proposals. Yep. That's the concept. We have disclosed that Bread Loaf Corporation is the top candidate for consideration, and their baseline proposal was $15,000 and something less than $15,000.
I mean, Valerie, what are your thoughts in terms of going back? Time is of the essence, I guess, in terms of being able to lock down someone to do this. It seems like there'd be a lot of time to go back and even ask one of the other people who had submitted to then reevaluate their own proposal. I mean, you made a decision to go with Breadloaf outside of the police department, and you were very comfortable with that. What are your thoughts in terms of opening it up again and going back? Is that something that would be is good to do, or is it just going to sort of put us back more than where we need to
Well,
be?
it would certainly put us back, and I think it may compromise the process because we haven't disclosed the details of the proposals, but it boiled down to different companies' approaches, the number of hours allocated to the tasks, and the ultimate proposed cost. And we knew we had a budget that we were trying to stay within. We originally estimated that the project might be in the area of $20,000. So that was kind of the framework that we were working in.
So at the moment we're at like 25,000, right? They're
by
about
adding the scope, which was this is new stuff.
okay.
But I think it's money well spent. I don't want to go through the process and get all done and say, boy, why didn't we think of that? I think that if we do it now, we'll know if, number one, we'll know if it'll fit. Number two, we'll know if it's anything we want to pursue.
So are you saying we should move forward with this proposal?
Well, I do have a question. The question I asked last time is that when we get done this process and they submit the finished product to us, this finished product is ours to do as we see fit. It's not copyrighted by them, and we don't, if we want to let it out.
Well, at that point, it's only a conceptual plan. It's not something.
I understand that, but
okay.
Still, is it proprietary, or can we use that to go to the company that built the fire station or another company because you can do a lot from a conceptual drawing. You'd know what you need for space and.
No, the town would definitely own them. Where there would be a boundary, I think, is if we wanted the underlying data, the mapping data, and had any intention of modifying anything or incorporating that into a different plan and modifying their work with the work of other people. I think that's where they would draw the line.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but we'd be able to take this and go with anyone we wanted in terms of contractor,
absolutely,
or builder. Okay, I mean, looking at the matrix that you sent that we talked about last week, so the Breadloaf one dropped by 5, but looking at the others, it seems like let's say all the others come in around the same price, adding the police component on. The Breadloaf one is still, obviously it's over what we originally thought, but it's still less than a lot of the others. And so I think that's a reason to sort of seriously consider and to keep looking at Breadloaf instead of revisiting with other companies. I just think you made the decision with Breadloaf and felt very confident with them. We've got a detailed proposal from them now to be able to add on this police station element. And looking at the numbers, it seems like it's going to fall under what maybe some of the other companies might come in as. And then again, it's just the time thing to have another company or possibly two revisit and give us numbers for that. We lose a number of weeks if we did that.
The other side of that is if we were thinking we wanted to do that, we should have done that last week so that everybody had the same amount of time to think about it. I'm comfortable with Breadloaf.
So am I.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion. We accept Breadloaf's proposal to do the study for the Public Works building and possibility of a police station.
Somebody want to second it?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I guess
Go ahead, Joel.
Valerie, can you break down for me the decision when you said about what work they'll keep and it's theirs, and what we'll get from them from this report?
We'll have their analysis, and we'll have conceptual plans, and we will be able to use those conceptual plans without modifying them. in any way we feel we need to.
And you said something else about the material. Can't.
No, she said if we wanted the data, the underlying data, then that's probably
But aren't we paying?
Proprietary.
Thank you.
Aren't we paying them to create that data? Find the data that the trucks are so long and the structure and all this. Aren't we paying for that data?
Well, we would have that. I'm talking about the mapping, the actual maps themselves that have their logo on them and their engineer stamp on them, that we can't modify those. So as long as we don't have no intention of adapting them into something else, then it should be fine.
When you say we can't, I won't say modify them. Does that mean though, if we get the first rough draft and we say, you know, Eric says, well, we'd like a few changes here, and Bruce says, I'd like a few changes there, and they'll say, no, these are ours, you can't change things.
No, we'd ask them to do it.
No, right, they'll do it, but you said we couldn't change things. I just want to make sure.
Not after the project done, and it's 5 years from now, and we want to take the project to another level. We can't, they own the intellectual property of it. So we can't take what they've done and change it. And I don't know why we would, but that's a bright line.
So we could take that product and put it out to bid, and if they're the high bidder of a builder,
yeah,
someone else isn't,
right?
You can't say, no, you're not getting our stuff because we put it together. That's not going to happen. We're going to get all of our, what we can go out to bid. I mean, conceptual drawings we're going to get. I want to make sure we don't have to repeat this process if we say, boy, we can't afford a $2.5 million structure, so to speak, and we're going to look a different architectural firm. That pile of stuff ours, so we can say to a new structural firm, says, we like what we're seeing, we like what we got, the bids came in too high, where can we cut? Are we going to be able to do that with a different firm if we wanted to?
I would think so. I mean, we're not going to have construction drawings out of this project. That would be the next phase to get into the higher level of detail, to actually have bid documents. But first we would need to get voter approval, because that would happen after the conceptual plans are accepted and we bring it out to the public for voter support, taxpayer support. Because we're going to have to bond, we're going to have to borrow for this, quite likely, and we would include in that bond figure resources to take the design drawings to the next level for bidding.
Okay. I mean,
so whoever we selected, whoever physically designed the building, we couldn't take, if we had, say we had, just for conversation's sake, we had Naylor and Breen design a building and give us drawings, and we had Breadloaf design a building and give us drawings. We couldn't take stuff out of Breadloaf's design and put into Naylor and Breen's. But we could take Naylor and Breen's whole design as a whole and run with it and not be in trouble.
Or depending on how it progresses, if you like some elements of one and some elements of another, you can articulate a different range of specifications to be included in final drawings, but you can't modify the drawings themselves.
The only real hang up I have is, it's like the fire station. That architect worked for Kevin Harper through the town of Bristol. He didn't work for Naylor and Breen. Naylor and Breen was the builder, and they were separate. When you go with Breadloaf, they're like husband and wife. The wife will design the building, and the husband's going to build it, because they are all in one. They design it, prep it, and they put it out to bid, and they bid on it. And it's a package you get with Naylor and Breen, or would you get?
I think, Joel, would really be in the next step. I mean, at this point, it's just a conceptual plan. So we're not hiring them to design and build. We're just hiring them to do a conceptualized plan. Once a conceptualized plan is done, then we can decide, okay, do we want Breadloaf to actually do the full design and build, or do we want to go somewhere else?
Okay. So, but the conceptuals will be all ours.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. The main thing in terms of the design of it is that we have to be very sure and work with them as closely as possible to get what we want. What happens is if you take Breadloaf's design, we can't take that and then make our own changes and give it to a builder to build, because Breadloaf doesn't have any say. They can't say that they designed and came up with the concept of the building anymore if we've made all these changes. So I think that's why they have that stipulation in their agreements. It prevents you from doing that, where their work is now lost and it's like, well, we designed half this building, or we designed this one section of it. They can't really put their name to it anymore in their work. And so that just means that as we're designing it and working with them, we just have to be very certain of what we're doing. And I think if we want to revise things 2 or 3 years later, we may just have to go back to them if we want to make revisions if things have changed. That's probably how you would approach it, right, Val?
Sure, sure.
It's not that we want to do that. We try to do it as, hopefully we're getting from them. They're giving us, the best that we can get in terms of the facilities, both for Department of Public Works and police, and we don't have to make those revisions. All of that is done through this process.
How likely or how often does it happen that you would choose someone different than who created the conceptual design? Is that a common occurrence?
I think it happens all the time because it's a very split thing between architects and or design and builders, right?
I mean, usually like Breadloaf is a design and build firm.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Like we might have had somebody design something who wasn't part of Breadloaf, but then had Breadloaf build it.
Got it.
I mean, I think like Middlebury Regional Ambulance, we had somebody design that and then had Breadloaf build it. They didn't do the design. So, I think it happens a lot.
I encountered this situation only once before. And in my experience, it's not very common. But that in Waitsfield, we had the water system that was designed by what was then Phelps Engineering. And they had all the baseline data of the survey of the highways and all the rights of ways and all the utilities and that kind of thing. And then we had a different project for the reconstruction of Bridge Street and the renovation of the covered bridge and completely rebuilding Bridge Street. And in that instance, Phelps Engineering was willing to provide, and this was totally separate projects at this point. The water system was built, Phelps was off to other things, and they were willing to provide their documentation, their intellectual property, and share that with the other contractors to help work on the designs and coordinate the design. So, but it was with their cooperation to do that. And that's the only experience I've had of sharing documents like that.
Right. Or if as a town we decided, oh, Starksboro needs a new system. Hey, here's a set of concept drawings that really work for us. Here you go. You can take these. Like that's another reason why they have that protection. So you can't share things like that.
I'm curious, was there a statement in their proposal that raised a red flag on this question in particular?
To me, Valerie, no, not really. The other firm was a highly respectable firm in the Chittenden County area, done a lot of schools and stuff, but they're not a builder. They're just a firm that works for the owner. That was one of the why I was leaning that way more than I was with Breadloaf. That was the only reason, because they were design firms. Their focus was the owner and not, we can build this also for you and this and that. Not that I'm saying Breadloaf would do that, but weren't a built and design. They were just strictly a design firm.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is clearly just a site analysis, a feasibility study and site analysis. And the product is going to be a conceptual plan that will tell us that a facility can be built in a manner that is pleasing and acceptable to everybody that needs to be involved in making that decision, whether it's just the public works facility or whether it's the combination of police and public works.
Are we going to have at least a number at the end?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if you look at the cost estimator is like at every step.
Okay.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
missed part, when Peter made the motion, it kind of went gargly for a second. So can you just repeat, Peter, your motion real quick for me? And who seconded that, please?
To accept the proposal from Breadloaf Construction to do the conceptual plan for the public works / police station.
And Ian seconded.
Yep.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye, whatever. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next, consider acceptance of the NRCS Emergency Watershed Protection Grant Agreement.
Do folks need me to put up Mike LaPointe's email on the screen at all?
Now, it took me a minute to understand what this was.
It's an alternative to FEMA funding from the Halloween storm.
Right, and you know, when I was reading this, this is just the initial setup and application. If the landowner decides not to go through with it, we are not stuck with that money. That goes back and off the plate.
Correct. So far, the EWP program is paying for all the engineering and design. And then once we get those plans, we would be responsible for putting it out to bid, selecting the contractor, and managing that project and submitting the cost, the payments. The town would have to pay up front and then submit 75% reimbursements through the program and then get the 25% from the property owner.
But our hoping is that we would somehow have an agreement with the landowners. If they didn't pay, we'd have a tax lien on their property or something or other.
Correct. Mm-hmm. I did this once before after Tropical Storm Irene in Waitsfield, and it went fairly smoothly.
Yeah. Okay.
But the
Anybody have any questions?
Motivated.
Thoughts? Motion? Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the grant agreement.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye, wave your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next, execute Vermont Revolving Loan Fund Agreement regarding the 1905 cast iron water line replacement project. It took me a minute to understand this one too. It's like,
it's been a while.
Okay, now I remember what this is. This was the thing we were supposed to get for nothing, right?
Right, the subsidized, right. But we
This
still
is the thing that Alan was ticked off about because the state reneged again.
Well, at least once we get the report done, if new opportunities come around for additional subsidy, we'll have the report in hand.
So do we actually have cast iron pipe that's from 1905 in Bristol?
Absolutely.
Most of the town.
It's actually in exceptional shape, Ian. Some of it's in better shape than some of the newer stuff that was put in. And then there are other spots where obviously it's not.
Was that the problem on Maple Street, Eric? You don't know, huh?
Eric's getting great at his just facial mannerisms and hand movements. He's perfect at that now.
Michelle.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
On Alan's walk around town, we talk about water lines and stuff, and he hopes to hear something on. I said, "You think this road going to hold up much longer?" He says, "I'm hoping to hear something by the fall to do this project next summer."
Pine Street?
I don't know if it's this, but.
You mean the water replacement, or you're talking about doing Pine Street?
Well, that was one of the first streets we said we wanted to do.
Right.
And that's 1905 lead copper or lead joints in the pipe out here. And he said he hopes to have that project. Valerie, I guess my question to you, have you talked to Alan lately on this?
No.
He just briefed me real quick. I was out doing some weed whacking, and he was going by, him and Melanie, and we talked for a second, and as we walked, and so maybe Valerie, just a follow up to Alan.
Mhm.
I'm hoping we can get this done next year.
So Val, if I'm reading this right, this is 28.5, whatever it is, 0%, 5 years. But that's our cost. We're not getting any of that back.
Correct. There is a question about potential loan forgiveness if the project goes to construction, but the proposal would need to meet certain criteria, and I'm not familiar at this point with what those criteria need to be. I would not plan on forgiveness because we've been tricked in the past, screwed in the past.
So then where is this money coming? I mean, I know it's a loan, but so we'll have to budget in the water and
after
sewer?
5 years. For
the 5 years?
Due in 5 years.
Okay, so there's no payments made until 5 years.
Correct.
And so it's a lump sum payment.
If the project goes to construction, then the loan can be wrapped into the construction loan. But I question, why would we want to do that? Why would we want to roll a no interest loan into a interest loan? I would advocate that we keep them separate if that's how it ends up happening.
And try and
that doesn't make
money in the capital plan to pay it off. Joel, go ahead.
Yes, Valerie, so thank you for filling us in on it'd be up in 5, if we voted for this and we did something next year, it'd be 5 years so it'd be 2026 that we'd have to start paying.
That's my understanding, yes.
So do we know between 2021 and 26 what's going off the books in bond payments for the water department?
We would know. I don't know that now off the top of my head.
Jen could help us out with what's going off the books. So got to be spent between 21 and 26 and money wise, and what's going off the books, and what would the increase be? What would we be looking at? I'd like to know some information on.
So how do people feel about?
Do you need that information before acting on this loan?
I apologize. I don't have a number in front of me for the loan. What is it?
It's 28.3.
No, I'm not upset about that. I think we get it started. We've been wanting to do a lot of water line work. It's long overdue.
Right. And at 0%, that makes really
Is that
good
a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay. Somebody second?
Second it.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Say aye, raise your hand, wave, whatever. Any opposed? There you go, Val.
Great, thank you. So the loan documents that select board members will need to come by the office and sign.
Yeah, and they'll also have to sign the warrant.
Right.
Okay, so let me see. Where are we at? Okay.
Are they ready to sign, Valerie, by Thursday?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to be gone after Thursday for 10 days. So.
Okay, so we have minutes for July 8th, July 13th, and July 20th. I think the only one I went through, I had time to go through, was July 8th.
And I discovered, I sent it that I had not updated who was present because I used an old set of minutes from last year. Still had the block of who was present then. So I've since updated it.
Okay.
Yeah, Ted wasn't on the bus. I didn't see him.
He was there in spirit. Did anybody get a chance to read the last 2 minutes that Val sent, the 13th and the 20th, I think?
I did not.
Okay. Can we put those off until the next meeting, Val?
Certainly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we'll do all 3 of them the next meeting.
Yep,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. Let's see. Accounts payable warrant and liquor license. Tasha, do you have the accounts payable? The warrant?
Yeah, $206,683.70.
Yes, you got it. Okay. I don't know if there's any liquor licenses, but if there are, we'll have to check with Jen, but my guess is nothing we have to vote on. Might have to sign them down at the town office. Okay. Select board roundtable. Jolie, let's go with you first.
Couple of things. Eric, You know how I'm always after you about getting stuff written down. I got a call from Donald Lathrop Saturday, and he had a conversation with one of the guys, a couple of guys at the mobile about this time last year. Of course, you know, Donald and David were longtime bridge engineers for the state of Vermont, and he designed the bridge at Hewitt Road. And he's concerned with the amount of trees and brushes growing around it. He says that will grow under that concrete and start popping it. And he mentioned to the boys last year around this time at the mobile, and they said on a Thursday, he said, because they said, oh, that's a good project for tomorrow because we don't work half days on Friday. So he thought he'd call me. He said he didn't see it done all winter or yet this year. So the Hewitt Bridge, if you look, it is the sight distance there to tree around the trees is kind of hard a little bit, but he's more concerned about the trees underrooting the concrete and start popping the concrete over time. So if you got any questions, call Donald Lathrop. He said he'd go down with you and show you. He's kind of proud of that bridge. He says it's one of his last ones he designed. So I said I'd bring it up.
All right.
Okay. And the last one thing, I know the clerk won't bring it up, but the clerk has been with us for almost 4 years. And as we give raises every year, she hasn't gotten a raise in almost 4 years. So Valerie, I don't know whether we do that. Is that she's not an employee, but the clerk, or the clerk as I mean minute taker.
Right, I understand.
So she won't bring that up, but I thought I would. She's been with us since December of 2016 and been still making the same amount of pay she was when she started. And
So have I.
And then the FEMA money that we've been waiting for some stuff, was that the Halloween stuff? Or was that the storm? Have we gotten that money yet?
We're still working out the reporting, the documentation of the damage.
Okay.
There's just a little bit left to do.
All right. Okay.
This COVID thing has been a little bit of a problem.
Well, a little bit, just a little bit of a problem, a big problem. So, okay. That's all I had then.
Speaker?
I'm good.
Ian?
I'm good.
Darla?
I had one call that came to me last week, and I sent it to Valerie. There was a person that was woken up in the middle of the night with some dumping, and she did some exploration.
It was perfect timing. Did you hear that?
I did hear it was perfect timing because it turned out to be the end of the project. But I just wanted to bring it up. She was concerned, so it turned out to be fine. And I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of Bunny Dobner, who is a longtime resident here in Bristol and certainly a fixture in our community. So I didn't know if everyone knew that she passed away last week.
I didn't.
I saw it on Front Porch Forum. That's the only way I knew.
Yeah.
I knew.
Very sad to hear that.
She was an amazing woman.
She was.
No, Darla, I think you missed my point. Just as you brought that up, a tailgate slam.
Oh, did I? I didn't hear that.
They are not done yet. I spoke with the contractor tonight. We have one trucker that apparently is a problem, that his gate slams 4 or 5 times, and all I've got to do is get my butt down there and find out which one it is, and he'll be gone from the job. But I spoke with them tonight. They've got another, they said the middle to the end of next week, they'll be done with night trucking. And they're keeping it to a minimum. Everything they can keep down in Middlebury, they're keeping in Middlebury for the night and then trucking it during the day, but some of it still has to come this way. And I don't know, I'm very aware that it's a lot of noise, and I don't know, I don't know what you do about it to stop it.
Well, she did.
dumped.
Go ahead.
I know she didn't ask to stop. She has been more than decent. Trust me.
Yeah.
She was very, very good about it. Very understanding, and said that she was going to approach the select board, and that's perfectly understandable. I don't know how we alleviate it. I think what happened is we had that stretch of hot weather. Everybody had their AC on. And then we got that nice cool night, the AC got shut off and the windows got opened.
That's exactly what she said. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I know I don't have AC, so I hear it every night. But yeah, we've done what we can. We've talked with the contractor. They have truck driver meetings every night, and they impress upon them that you know, it's not acceptable to let that gate slam a half a dozen times, and so we're doing our best to keep it to a dull roar. The other one that you may or may not know about is that our contractor for the Main Street's dumping here too, and that's, as you know, is all night work. So I apologize to anybody that's bothering, and we'll do our best to keep it as quiet as we can and as minimal as we can.
So one of the things that she mentioned sorry, speaker.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things she mentioned in her email is sort of notification for abutting property owners. I don't know.
That was my next comment. Was that now that I know where we're at in the project, we'll reach out to her again tomorrow and let her know.
Okay.
I found out. I called them tonight. That was the phone call I got where I stepped out of the room earlier. Was from the foreman down there, because I wanted to give you good information. I didn't want to give you and the public good information, so that rather than make it up myself.
Right.
So
I didn't know if the select board had policy about that in terms of, I mean, it's obviously, you know, our project is a public project, as is the Middlebury. I don't know if we have anything in place to let property owners know if something like this is going to happen and the amount of time, things like that. I don't know how this has happened in the past.
Honestly, I've never had any night dumping in the past.
Okay.
So it's never been an issue. Middlebury, it's my understanding they have a noise ordinance, but they suspended it for the project. You know, I don't know how that would work for us. It's not our project. Why would we suspend our rules for their project if we had rules in place? I don't know the answers, Ian. All I can do is apologize for the nuisance I've caused and try to keep people better informed in the future.
Right. It seems like that's the biggest thing, similar to just, you know, notifying people of work that was on Main Street at night. You know, we've had very few complaints over the last number of weeks now, and I think a lot of it is because Natalie's putting out the information, I'm sharing it, and people just know about it and can expect it. So I think the same thing for your neighbor too, just to have that information or even know that what's coming up or how long it might last, I think goes a long way, which is great.
Well, that was, you know, I read, she put the wrong email address for me, so I didn't get it. I got a separate email from her, and she apologized for that. And you know, her concerns about the material that's being dumped, it's both state jobs. We are a certified dump site for the state. We don't get anything that's contaminated. And we're certified to recycle concrete and asphalt. So those are, and that's all we take. We don't take anything contaminated. We don't take anything we're not supposed to. So I saw that when I read her letter as well. And I don't know if my brother addressed that when he talked to her, but I'll certainly take care of that tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Speaker.
Yeah, she did know that, Picker, when she talked to me later in the day. She had heard that already, that it was clean, sort of, so to speak.
Yeah. So she must. I know Peter. I know she reached out to us, and Peter reached out and spoke with her, and
she said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said she also knew that she lives next to a pit and that there's going to be noise.
Yeah,
she
but
just didn't expect it in the middle of the night. That's all.
Yeah, it's not a 24-hour operation, nor is it supposed to be. I mean, that's no, you know, it's one of those things. It's a project that the federal government took on that created a life of its own. So, like I said, I'll reach out to her again tomorrow and let her know the duration of the night dumping and see that she's informed from here on out.
Thanks, Peter. That's all I got.
Okay, and I'm good. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I know this is sort of out of turn, but this subject kind of inspired me. It has nothing to do with peak or anything, but I wonder if there's a way we could address some of the engine braking that's happening with trucks coming through town and the speed of some trucks. I think that Chief, I would compliment you guys on doing really good traffic enforcement and being, showing the flag a lot this year. I really, as a Main Street person, I really appreciate that. But I'd love to see some focus on the commercial traffic, including the brake burpers. There seems to me to be a couple of drivers who, I don't know this, but it seems like it's their calling card or their signature. As they come through town, they burp all the way through 5, 6, 7 times. And there's one person like right at the end of every day going eastbound through town and just burping all the way through. It's like I said, it's almost like a signature or something. And there's a person in the morning. There's a milk truck every morning. The guy starts burping before he gets to the Prayer Rock, and he goes all the way through town, like letting us all know that he's coming through, I just wonder, I don't think there's an ordinance or any specific thing.
There's a sign on East Street that says, please don't use your engine brake in the village limits, and there's one on the other end of town.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Bruce can address this better, but it's considered a piece of safety equipment. It is a brake. It's a courtesy. It is a courtesy to shut it off. I mean, there's no need for it. There's no need for it on Main Street.
If they're going 30 miles an hour or less, and they should be going less as they come through at least the few blocks of Main Street, there should be no need for it. And so the fact that they're using it suggests that they're going too fast, or they're not taking the caution that they could take to avoid it if they could. Anyway, I don't know how you get around that or what you do about that, but I just flag it as an issue, FYI. Thanks for making time.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. I'm not sure we can do anything about it. I mean, not even sure that Bruce can ticket them for it because, like you said, it's a safety equipment. But okay. Yes, Eric.
If they're, well, Peaker can attest to this too, but if they're burping a lot, more likely they're shifting without the clutch and they're using the Jake to shift to the next gear.
So does that mean learn how to drive a truck?
Cowboys.
Oh, God.
Cowboys.
Do it in somebody else's town.
Yeah.
Okay.
The nice thing is that as those trucks get phased out, the new engine brakes you can barely hear. So it's coming, but it'll be a few years before they're all gone.
Okay. Val, anything? Town administration report?
Nope, nothing to add.
So executive session personnel?
Yes.
Okay. Are we inviting anybody in or?
We should probably invite Bruce in.
Okay. All right.
Eric was.
So I'll make a motion that we enter executive session to discuss personnel. Oh,
Hi, John.
hi, John.
Eric
Personnel. What's that?
I'm asking Eric if he wants to meet with the select board for anything.
No, I'm good for now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right then.
Okay. To discuss personnel issues per, was it 1 BSA section 313, and to ask Chief Nason to join us. Somebody second? Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say hi. Okay. Any opposed? Okay. So Val, will you send us a new meeting or are we going to stay on here?